This took place 3 years ago. I was 18 years old. Now, as a 21-year-old female, it still gives me the creeps. I was seeing this guy, we'll call him Jack, at the time of this story. Jack was 20 at the time. He and I had an agreement. Nobody was to know about our relationship. Due to both of our family backgrounds, we would be forced to marry each other or not see each other at all. So needless to say, we often met in very secluded places. We just weren't ready for that kind of commitment, both being hurt in the past. Before you wonder, no, he wasn't violent, and this story isn't about him. More so about the guys we ran into at one particular rest stop. Now, the city I live in is very populated, and for our relationship to work, we needed to get away from it all from time to time. One cloudy day, we decided to take a drive a little ways out of town. I was supposed to be in classes until 5 in the afternoon, so when he picked me up at 8 a.m., I was excited to think that we had plenty of time to do whatever we wanted. The drive to get to where we were going was of moderate length. We listened to music over his stereo, and were just generally having a great time. I decided it was time for a break, so we stopped at a little rest stop area on the side of the road. This rest stop had a few tables and benches along with a couple of trash cans. Just next to the tables was a low fence to separate the rest stop from a farm. Beyond that fence lay a few hectares of beautiful green grass, the kind of grass that was grown to dry and make bundles of hay. As we sat at one of the tables, each enjoying a cigarette and some ice-cold orange juice, I felt anxiety building in the pit of my stomach. I stupidly brushed it off to me being anxious about being out of town, where nobody would know to find me with a person they wouldn't think to ask. I killed my cigarette and heard something familiar. Pulling into the rest stop just behind me, I heard a vehicle. I turned my head to look and saw a gray pickup truck of sorts. The windows were tinted, but through the windshield, I could make out 2 large figures, obviously male, but could not make out their features. Now, Jack was not a small guy. He was around 6 feet and muscular, thick black hair slicked back and a jaw that looked like it could break your bones with enough force. Being very intimidating by nature, he immediately squared his shoulders at the side of the truck behind me. He told me to get back in the car, and I protested. "Let's not be rash," I told him. "Someone probably just needs to take a leak." He looked at me with seriousness in his eyes. "Something strikes me as shady," he said as he rose from his seat and took me gently by the arm, leading me back to the car. The rest of the drive was uneventful, and we had forgotten all about the shady truck. We made it to our destination safely and walked into a single-story cottage-like building that we had booked in advance for a few hours of amorous activities. In each other's company, we both truly enjoyed the few hours of total freedom we had. But this is where things got bad. I could have sworn that in the middle of our fun, I saw a figure at the window, directly next to the bed. I chalked it up to a shadow due to the cloudy, dark weather, but I was wrong. We gathered our belongings and made our way to the front desk, which was situated at one end of the parking lot. We parked the car close to the office for some reason that Jack had given me. As our backs were turned to the other end of the lot, from the time we stepped out of the cottage, I only noticed the gray pickup when I turned to get into the car from the passenger's side. The second I realized it was the same truck, I turned on my heel to tell Jack, but he had already finished checking out and was standing right behind me. Seeing the fear in my eyes, he moved quickly to get us out of there. Before I knew what was happening, 3 guys emerged from the truck. 2 of them were quite big. The other was more average in height and size. They all wore jeans, and I distinctly remember one of the bigger ones wearing a leather jacket. Their eyes, that's what got me trembling. They looked crazed, like they were on something. They walked towards our car quickly. I flung the passenger side door open and practically threw myself inside. Jack did the same, starting the car and putting it into reverse. One of the men proceeded to stand behind the car in an attempt to block our way. I looked over to Jack, who was staring intently at the man in the rearview mirror. I could see how determined he was to get us out of there safely. The other two guys were now standing at each of our windows. The one at Jack's window called out,
"Hey man, that's a nice piece you got over there. She really knows how to move, too. How much for me to take you back to that room over there?"
He looked at me then, pointing to the room Jack and I had just left. I was utterly disgusted and whispered under my breath, "Get me out of here, Jack." Jack looked at me and said, "Babe, I don't care even if I have to run one of these suckers over. I'll get you home in one piece." He revved up the engine as a warning before lowering the emergency brake and backing up slowly to show the guy behind the car that he was not messing around. The guy at my window reached behind his back and pulled out a Magnum .357 revolver. He then pointed it directly at me.
"Get out of the car,"
he growled at me. I saw the nope on Jack's face and he edged the car backward, causing the guy behind us to jump to the side and out of the way. We then floored it out of there. I heard 2 shots coming from behind us as we screeched the heck out of the parking lot. I was bent over, holding my head down out of complete and utter terror. I stayed in that position for a good 5 minutes of fast driving. Jack made the smart decision to take some side roads in order to lose the creeps. Luckily for us, we knew the area better than they did. After a couple of turns, we were safe. I sat up, and finally the magnitude of the situation dawned on me. It was then that I began to bawl my eyes out. I got home safely, but sadly, I could never share the story with my loved ones, as Jack and I were never meant to be together. I think about this a lot. I don't know what those guys had in mind, and I don't think I'd ever like to find out. But I would like to remind everyone to be safe and always be aware of your surroundings. It doesn't hurt to be cautious. I'm a 33-year-old woman and an eclectic pagan, yet the story I'm about to share with you still makes me raise an eyebrow. I've seen my fair share of paranormal happenings. This story takes place in 2005 when I was only 18 years old in central Indiana, about an hour north of Indianapolis. It's a whole lot of corn and soybean fields. Anyway, this involves me and 4 other people. 1 other young woman, and 3 fellas. It was a boring summer weekday evening, and we were in the apartment just babbling about nothing when we got on the subject of local haunted places. One place we discussed was the Satanic Church, which is out in the middle of nowhere, and as we later realized, 1 county over. The story goes that supposedly in the late 1800s or early 1900s, a cult took over the church and killed the parishioners one day. No clue if that's actually true or not, but that's the story we heard. The church is small, about that old, and it's one of those that actually has a cemetery on the property, just to add to the creepy factor. Well, the lot of us being 18 to 20 years old and bored out of our minds, we decided to go on a little road trip out to the church. We all piled into our lady friend's little Chevy Beretta, and we headed out. Mind you, she's the only one that actually knows where we're going. So the other girl is driving. 1 guy is in the front passenger seat. I'm in the back behind the driver, and the other 2 guys are in the back with me. We drive for about half an hour in the country and then down a gravel road before we make it to the church, which is on a gravel road across from a cornfield with the church on the driver's side of the car. By then, it's well after midnight. We were apparently the only car on the road since we left town, and the road we were on was so narrow, only one vehicle could drive down it at any given time. Now, we've all seen our fair share of horror movies to know better than to actually get out of the car. So we sit there with the windows rolled down, staring at this church. In one window at the bottom left, nearest the graveyard, is a faint translucent bluish-gray figure. It appeared like some smoke decided to try to become corporeal. It was in the shape of a person. It was for the most part androgynous. I squinted really hard. Then I said, "Do you guys all see that thing in the window there?" Everyone saw it, all 5 of us. As we stared, transfixed on the church, I started to see shadows moving in the graveyard. I know at least the other girl with us saw it too. The next thing we knew, we were all blinded by glaring lights. There was a truck with floodlights that had pulled up in front of us. We all gasped and acted in the sudden light. Then, out of the truck, steps a man in a county sheriff's uniform. Not the county we're from, but the next one over. I didn't realize we were that far out. He comes up to the car and starts asking the usual questions, all the while shining a flashlight in each of our faces, like he couldn't already see us well enough with the lights on his big ol' yee-yee truck. Now, it's important that I reiterate that we're on a narrow, one-lane gravel road, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, with absolutely no other traffic from anywhere. And when the guy in the sheriff's uniform came up to the car, he went over to the passenger window for some reason. By doing this, he made the driver have to reach over the passenger to hand him her information. He was a young guy, I'd say early 20s. If you've ever been pulled over, then you know that it is not the proper way to do that. I understand that sometimes the officer will go to the passenger side on a busy road for safety reasons. But again, it was a gravel road in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. The man asks us all to get out of the car to perform a vehicle search. We comply, getting out and handing him our IDs. He uses his cell phone to call it in, but he had a radio on his shoulder. I assumed it would be protocol to use the radio. I was sure of it. As we're all just standing there, I look back at the church. That thing, that figure, it's still in the window, and I swear it appeared to be laughing at us. The man lazily searched the car, giving us back our IDs and telling us to just go home. It wasn't until we made it back to the apartment that I realized it. I started to point out everything that the sheriff did wrong. Going to the wrong side of the car, using his cell phone, using a truck that wasn't at all an official police vehicle. It was just a big truck with bright, annoying floodlights attached. I still talked to the other woman that was with us that night, and I brought up this story to her a few months back. She said she thought that she read somewhere that a guy from that county got arrested for parading around in a family member's sheriff's uniform. But I don't remember hearing about anything of the sort. We concluded that the church was definitely haunted, and that guy definitely was not a sheriff. I wish any of us had a phone with video capabilities at the time, so we could have gotten a badge number and a name. But in 2005, that was a commodity. Just remember, kids, if you're ever pulled over or stopped by police of any kind, it is well within your rights to record everything they do, even if they tell you not to. After all, you never know when it might be an imposter. I graduated from this university about a year ago, but I still remember this event very vividly. If no one believes this, it's okay. I'm Wiccan, and have also always been trying to gain a better understanding of the paranormal. I do know some students on that campus believe this story, as well as a girl who was my roommate at the time. Well, I was a freshman that year, and I had just moved into the freshman dorms. There were various freshman dorms, but mine was on the farthest side of the campus and was one of the oldest dorms on the campus. In the dorm building, they have a girls' side and a boys' side. Both have showrooms of what the rooms look like for students who are interested in attending school there. Apparently, in the girls' showroom, a student once died. I always thought it was kind of chilling, but I didn't think much beyond that. A few months into living in my room, my roommate and I experienced something we cannot explain. Originally, our beds weren't bunked, but we made them that way. My bed was on top and hers on the bottom. We were both in our beds at the time, watching TV. We always kept our door locked, especially at night. Suddenly, our door opened slowly at first. Then, all at once, it fully swung open. We could see right into our hallway then. My roommate and I looked at each other with shock, because how could the door have opened like that from the outside without a key to our room? We shut and locked the door again. We went to bed, although I don't think either of us really slept that night. I knew I always felt uneasy about our dorm, and whenever I had to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, it was even more unsettling. At night, there is a single light in the center of the hallway, where the door to the girls' bathroom/showers are at. Otherwise, there is no light in the hallway, except for the red exit signs. I always tried to make my trips quick, because I got the feeling something was watching me from the dark corners of the hallway, and I never ever stared into the large bathroom mirror, because I felt that if I had, I was going to see something or someone. Eventually, my roommate and I learned we lived right above the showroom where the student had died, and we also began talking to other students who lived in that dorm as well. Some experienced doors rattling, and their doors locking and unlocking, or opening and closing, even footsteps by the door. I experienced a lot in college, but I will never forget the unsettling feeling of being watched wherever I went. I was walking home one night from my friend's house. Must have been around 10:30. I kept to my usual route, straight around the corner, past the shops and up the hill. This would take me home in 10 to 15 minutes. I made my way past the shops, and I began to walk up the hill, past this long stretch of woodland and a field beside it. But for some reason, something felt strange. It was as if something was watching my every move. I could feel the hair prickling at the back of my neck. I laughed it off as nothing, but my own mind scared me. As I looked up, that's when I saw the moon, full and big and bright. Something about it creeped me out. And that's when the scraping noises began. I could hear light tapping, then the occasional heavy thud, like a dog was running or circling around me. I began to run, soon halfway up the hill. I was trying to outrun whatever I was hearing around me, but before long, the uphill run left me fatigued. I was tired and breathing extremely heavily. I listened then, but nothing was there this time, and I mean no noise at all. Even all the birds fell silent, as if some predator was lurking about, and they were aware of it. In an instant, a snarl came from my left, which began more like a hiss, ending in a full growl, like a dog that was ready to bark. Instinctively, I glanced over in the direction of it. I saw a huge, dark figure. It stood at least 6.5 feet tall, with glowing yellow eyes that were more cat-like. It stood on hind legs, which seemed most similar to those of a dog. complete with padding and claws. Whatever it was gripping onto the fence. It looked up at me then. We locked eyes. I tried to back up, but I was shaking, and I soon caught my foot on a rock and fell. By the time I quickly glanced back up towards it, there was nothing. Just a now broken fence and the sound of its feet and hands thumping on the ground as it sprinted in the direction of the opposite field, full of cattle. I hurried home. When I got back to my house, I was pale white, and I threw up almost instantly due to panic. Before long, that feeling of being watched came back, although after a quick glance in the woods outside, there turned out to be nothing there. Or so I thought. An eerie, distant howl erupted from the forest, a howl that sounded more like a scream or a cry. Whatever it was, it sounded angry. Then I spotted them, the same eyes I saw before, now under a tree in the distance, right where the hedges ended. I've never run to my room so fast in my life. This event began to change the way I thought about things. I've never really stepped outside at night much after it. But one thing's for sure. If that was real, what else could be out there? That same paranoia, both from my experience and the question that haunted my mind, still lives with me to this day, almost 3 years later.